Hello, hello, hello. Good to see you. You get fairy dust, I get fairy dust. Amelie gets fairy dust. Little Fonny gets fairy dust. And I'm going to talk about this book again. And you nailed it. This is number 2 in a series. And so I'm going to be working out of this book, making videos regarding this book and how it changed me and how it was helpful to me. Okay. This is from page 3. Um, He's talking about neuroscience and how, and the latest trauma research, um, why traumatized people often keep repeating the same problems and have such trouble learning from experience. We now know that the behaviors are not result of moral failings or signs of lack of willpower or bad character. They are caused by actual changes in the brain. Um, and so the whole point of this is shame is completely unnecessary. No need to have it. Um, Traumatized people often keep repeating. This is why people stay in bad relationships. This is why people a lot of times marry people or start relationships with people that are very similar, the abuse or the condescension or the attachment style is very similar to one of the parents. That's what I found in my experience. Like you're either you're gonna connect with somebody that's like the one that you're gonna turn into one of your parents, like whatever their style is. And so if you had a parent that was like the enabler instead of the addict, like you might be the enabler, you might be the addict, who knows? Um, but we don't need to feel shame about it, because it's like, if you think about it, if you had a parent who is an addict, and it's like you were raised with somebody who had an addicted brain. And so of course, and then that person who had addiction, who probably also has generational trauma. So, like you were taught this way of dealing, you literally groomed, what's the word that we use in therapy? Entrained to think and behave in certain ways. And so, of course, we're going to repeat the patterns. That's why, for me, one of the most important tools is the cycle of abuse and how to get off of it. How to not repeat the same thing, go from honeymoon to boredom to stress building to stress really building to a fight or an explosion or silent treatment or some dramatic thing happening in the family. And then nobody says anything, nobody does anything to change. And then you go right back to honeymoon. That is why we have a brain that is entrained in this cycle of abuse or dysfunction. And it takes energy. It takes, again, it takes effort to learn about it. Just so you know, by you just learning about this is your attempt at getting conscious of getting out of a cycle like that. Setting boundaries in a relationship that is reminiscent of a past relationship or one that you grew up with, starting to set your boundaries and follow through with them. Or decide what your boundaries are. You know what? I'm actually not going to be talked to that way anymore. So we're just not doing it. Like, I don't, just please don't. And then if you do, there has to be consequence. That is pattern changing. That is like won't be repeating a pattern. Again, these things are not easy. It's easier just to go with the status quo. It's easier to, shut our mouths. It's easier to go along to get along. But again, is that easier, or is it just more suffering? Or are we just playing a role that we have on the cycle of abuse? Like one of my roles, speaking of roles, like one of my roles was like the teacher's pet. And, looking back, I can see why, I didn't I was, parentified child. And so like I got along better with adults than with children. And I wasn't trying to kiss up to them. They just knew that we had a connection, and I wanted to talk to them more than I wanted to talk to these kids who I didn't know how to relate to. Um, I know I was really shy around, but I knew how to talk to adults and I knew how to please the teacher by making good grades and behaving in class. And so, of course, okay, that worked. I survived. And then I moved around a lot when I was little. So it's like, okay, new school. How did you survive the last time? Let's repeat the pattern instead of trying to make friends or find a little group, or I don't care how much lipstick I get over the rest of my face like a clown. Like I cannot not wear red lipstick. I love it so much. Anyway, um, so is that a pattern I'm repeating? Yes. And now that cheek is red, and so we can just do this. Um, so it worked. I survived. So of course I'm going to repeat the pattern. Of course I'm going to repeat the pattern. Of course I'm going to repeat the pattern. And that once your psyche understands how to survive and how to even thrive in a certain situation, even though you're not necessarily being yourself, you're playing a role, if you are the peacekeeper at home, guess who's the peacekeeper at work? If you are the scapegoat at home, guess who's probably going to end up being the scapegoat at work? It's like these roles, even though we don't like, or the hero at home, the hero at work, like these roles, like they are, um, yeah, they are so compelling and we're compelled to repeat it. So to do it differently, like, so for me, not to please a teacher, I don't even know how not to do it. I'm gonna tell you a quick story before I go. So, anyway, so just so you know, like we don't need to feel shame about this. We don't need to feel shame about it, and we can make little changes. We can do things just a little bit differently. Like one of the things I could do next time I have a teacher is like, okay, remember, you don't need to be the teacher's pet. You're here to receive the teaching. You're here. Why does it look like I'm a corpse and then I have all this light in me? Like that's I need to do some work on this camera. Anyway, I'm gonna be a corpse for a little while, apparently. Okay, so all right, so I was in this class and I was getting it was a Gestalt therapy class. And one of my favorite ways to learn, and a lot of what I went through in grad school for becoming a therapist, was experiential training, experiential learning. And what that means is um, instead of just so like in group therapy, we'd have a class where we would read the books and learn the techniques, and then we'd have this other class, I guess you could call it a lab, where we were experiencing group therapy with a teacher who but was like all these teachers were therapists, so she's a therapist, and then we were in group with our classmates. Okay, well, I took this Gestalt class, and there's all these very interesting techniques in Gestalt. And one of them is in group therapy. And one of them is you go around the room and you tell one thing you don't like about the person and one thing you do like about the person. Like, can you imagine doing that in a family? Like this, I don't like that I don't like that you're always late. And then I like your fashion sense and how nice you are, or something like that. So you'd have to do that. And it's a very difficult, got the life back in me. It's a very difficult thing to do. Very difficult for obvious reasons. How uncomfortable is it to say something you don't like about a person? Anyway, so I was in this class, and um, I people were only being able to say the nice thing. They literally couldn't say the tough thing. And so the teacher just decided, I'll do it. And so he went around the class, about 20-25 people. And for each person, he goes, I like this about you. I don't like this about you. I like this about you. I don't like about, he went around he went around the bend. And then he got to me and he only said something that he liked. He said, Elizabeth, I like dot, dot, dot. And then unconsciously, like went to the next person. And I mean, I didn't even think that I was his pet or anything, just FYI, like that we didn't have that kind of relationship. He keeps going around, and then somebody, of course, it's like, bitch, mind your business. Said, hey, Mr. Whatever the fuck, like you didn't, doctor, whatever the fuck, you didn't say something that you didn't like about Elizabeth. And he like leans back, and this fellow, it was like a Gandalf kind of a situation. And he goes, I didn't? He goes, well, what that tells me is Elizabeth has something going on in her about pleasing the teacher. And I was like, what did you do shit? Like, I was what? Like, he just called that shit out. So I was repeating a pattern, not trying to repeat a pattern, but you can only imagine how eager I am in class, like just listening and just, like, God, it's so cringy. It's so cringy, but it's how I survive. So I would repeat the pattern, repeat the pattern, repeat the pattern. And so, but some of those Gestalt teachers, some of those expressive arts teachers, unions, oh, they see you, they see you. And that was very, very helpful to me. And you would not believe how I could not wait to tell my therapist that. Because before I knew I was a fawn, before I had that language from Pete Walker, we used to call it my Santa Clausing. So, anyway, so we do not beat ourselves up for repeating the same problem. We do not we do not beat ourselves up, from learning from our experience. Like we don't beat ourselves up for that. It's the trauma doing it, and all we can do is just to start doing it differently. But here's what they don't tell you. It's just like, oh, it's just like, it takes energy and it is fucking uncomfortable. Do you know how uncomfortable it would be for me to sit in the back, to have a hoodie over, to look schlumped over like I wasn't paying attention, to be on my phone like during a class? Like, do you know how uncomfortable that would feel? Like I can't hardly talk about it. Like that's the idea. That feels awful. Again, this is ancient shit going on in my brain. It's like, no, 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 no. This is how we survive this. Um, and I described my home life, like not great. And then like my school life, like I hated school, like I hated it. And so of course I found something. And so like teacher's pet, AKA Santa Clausing, AKA fawn trauma response with adults as a parentified child, like that's just one of my roles. That's just one of them. It's a big one, but it's just one of them. And so it's like, if my goal is to become Elizabeth and to fully be myself and experience life, I can't experience the embodied feeling of feeling alive while I'm busy being a teacher's pet. And so that's why I'm willing to be uncomfortable. I'm willing to sit in the back of the class and look uninterested. Like I'm willing because I want to be Elizabeth. If you're trying to undo a tool, and if you're following me, you're probably a fawn too. It's just like, do a little thing, like kind of see if you can be bad. Like, see if you can be a little bad. See if you can, instead of your normal seat in class, take another seat in class. It's uncomfortable, but you'll do it. I hope that was helpful. Love you. Bye.